This is a simple tutorial on how to use Excel to make a graph. At this point in time, you've already made your data table, and now I can use my data table to have Excel make a graph for me. It makes it really nice and simple, makes nice, pretty graphs. The tricky thing is you really have to have a good understanding of what your graph needs to look like. Excel is used for a lot of different things, business, all sorts of stuff. So it has a lot of different graphing functions, and it doesn't necessarily know what your data is and what it means. So as you select the different graphing options, it is going to manipulate your data in different ways. So you have to have a good understanding of what your graph should look like, or you might end up making a graph that looks pretty that does not express your data. So the first thing that we're going to do, and you can kind of do this mentally, I recommend that you maybe write it down. I want to go and just think about what my graph is going to look like. So again, here's my x-axis, here's my y-axis, independent variable goes on the x-axis. In this case, my independent variable is the brand of fertilizer. Now if I work that out, it's difficult to make a graph. One of the first questions I should ask myself is, what type of graph am I going to make? And I'll ask myself, is this data continuously changing? And if I look back at my data table, yeah, I've got day 1, day 2, day 3, so it's 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters. The data is continuously changing, which means I need a line graph. And when I have a line graph, most of the time, I'm going to have time down here. And this is just, kind of messy. I'm doing it quick. So my days would go across here. My dependent variable is going to go over here on my y-axis. And in this case, it's plant height. I'm not going to write it in just because I'm kind of going quick. So there's my plant height. And then how am I going to show my independent variable? Well, I'm going to have a line for each type of fertilizer. So at day 1, they're all the same height, around 3. And then, they increase. And again, this is not a pretty data table. I just want an idea of what my data table should look like. And I'll show you why that's so important. What I'm going to do in Excel is I'm going to go ahead and select my data table. And now I'm going to just go to the Insert tab and come over here to Charts. And there's all sorts of different charts. So you've got column charts and these weird sideways bar charts. We won't use those too much. The main ones that you're going to use, either a column chart, which we really think of as a bar graph. Sometimes we use a line chart or an XY scatter plot. And it really depends on the data that you're trying to collect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of click on some stuff and see. Oftentimes, a line graph isn't going to give you what you want. Sometimes an XY scatter plot isn't going to give you what you want. So we're going to try them and see what they look like. So I'm going to click on this, and then it'll show me what it looks like. All right, so if I see what's going on here, I'm going to go ahead and put a line in. So these different options kind of give you different options of how you want it to look. Do you want to have data points? Do you want to have lines? Do you want to have straight lines or the best fit line? Things like that. So just click on this. If I look at this, something's not right here. I've got B and I've got C. I don't see A anywhere. A fertilizer's not there. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That looks like my days of the week, or the days of my experiments. That's not too bad. This isn't bad. I start at 0. I go to 30. If I look at my data, it got up to 27 inches, but that's okay. So that's 24 inches. So I'm just missing A. So let's get rid of that. That didn't work. Let's try something else. I'll go back to Insert. I'll try a line graph. And again, I just gotta have to find something that works. So here's the days of my week. Whoops, I gotta click on it first. Here are the days of the week. That looks good. It says plant height, but I can fix that. This makes sense. Goes up. There's A, there's B, there's C. All right, so this graph looks pretty good. Let me go back and show you. Let me delete this. And I'll show you why it's so important to go through this process of thinking about it first. If I click on this graph over here, this doesn't make sense, right? This goes up to 70, and this is extracting the data in some way and manipulating it to do something that I don't want it to do. If I look at this option, this is percentages, so that's completely off base. All right, I'm going to go with this one. I'll put my data points in there. You can go with this. That works well too. All right, now I've got a graph that looks good. Now I want to check my requirements. Does it have a title? Does it have labels? Does it have units? All that kind of stuff. So I'm going to click here on chart elements. Make sure it has a chart title, axis titles. So I'll click on that. And you can see the little text box that it popped up here. Everything looks good. So you can kind of see what things you want to put in here. And now I can go in and I can change these. So I can change this. This should actually be plant height. Then again, I want to include my label, centimeters, chart title. I'll just call this plant growth. And then I want to change this to time. Oh, I deleted it. That's tricky. So sometimes things like this might happen where you've got this plant height here and you don't really want it there. You might have to just get rid of that. You can go into Paint and delete it. I accidentally erased my axis title. So now I can put it back in there. It's the same thing. I'll just click on it. So this is time in days. So again, my unit for that is days. Let's see if I can just drag this right over the top. Nope, that won't work. So you'll run into these types of issues every once in a while where you have to get rid of this. So that would be a task that you'll just have to go through. But most of the time in Excel, it will bring you up a nice, pretty graph that you can use. I'm not sure why it's throwing this in there. It has to do with how I have laid out my data table up here. This plant height is up here. So sometimes you'll run into those issues. Most of the time, if you're dealing with a nice straightforward graph, that won't be the case. So what I would do is take this graph, stick it into Paint, erase that, move this over, save it as a picture, and then I can stick it into my document. So there is a nice, pretty graph. Ooh, and we will need to add a legend over here that tells me that A is fertilizer A, B is fertilizer B, C is fertilizer C. So it gives you the flexibility to do whatever you need.